What do we have here? Ooh, look at this. This is a Specialized Dolce, women's specific, women's road bike. Yeah, it's the Dolce Sport, which is the lower end of their line of the particular period, but still actually is pretty decent bike, especially for somebody just getting into riding. And with today's used market and so forth, this could be definitely a diamond in the rough and brought in for a tune-up to have it reviewed and make sure it's all ready to go for its next new adventures with the new owner. Let's review the Specialized Dolce Sport and what hidden mysteries of this used bike after this. Welcome to I Know a Guy Bicycles, hanging out with a guy. Hi, I'm Justin the Guy. Obviously I have a garage shop. Take scary out of used, one bike at a time. If you want to be kept up to date on latest projects and topics, please like and subscribe. Hey, welcome back to I Know a Guy Bicycles, hanging with a guy on this old bike series. Hey, I'm Justin the Guy, and we're going to review the Specialized Dolce Sport. It is a women's specific design bike. What does that really entail and mean? Really not too much with the frame. Quite honestly, a lot of the companies have kind of coined the women's specific design, WSD from Trek or ladies version or whatever. A lot of the times it's actually the same frame, just a little bit different coloring, but they do some contact points that are actually women's specific. The bars, the reach of the brake levers, the saddle, and sometimes a little bit shorter crank. But other than that, the frame and fork are pretty much the standard with the other standard frames. Well, a little side note, fast forward to today when women's specific design bikes really hit the market in the late 90s, really pushed it through the 2000s and the teens. In the last few years, they've actually phased out that and made it more of a neutral gender bike. The reduced SKUs, this is kind of a precursor to COVID anyway, to kind of shrink down the numbers of bikes that they have. Specialized led the charge of having women's specific. Now they pulled away, leading the charge, no longer having women's specific. I'll have to check and see if Trek has followed suit completely, but for any case, is kind of like a bait and switch kind of thing. And as a shop owner, you'd have to like, oh, well, I have this model of bike, I have to carry 6 sizes, then I have to have the women's versions, which is fine. But usually when the prices start creeping up to 2,000 to 3,000, it's really a hard pill to swallow for bike shops to carry all those. But anyways, this particular one, the Dolce Sport from Specialized, was born on August 9th of 2010. They have a little sticker on these if they're not removed. On a lot of them, they'll have the actually born date with the serial number. So that's kind of cool. This one's still intact. That kind of shows you the bike hasn't really been used that much. That's one indicator of many. But let's dive into that. Looking at the bike being a 2010, it has, what is this, the SOAR componentry for the shifters, a tagger, which is the next step up of the rear derailleur. That was kind of like a little bait and switch that they started back in the 90s as well, upgrading the rear derailleur, so you would assume on the floor that was that next model up, which evidently it is not. The shifters are a downgrade. The crankset is a off-brand white label Truveta. Still good stuff though. I mean, it's still pretty decent. The wheels are actually Mavic. Mavic rims are probably, they're a no-name hubs, which I think YYT or TTY, one of those companies made a whole bunch of hubs in Taiwan or in China for that. So it is kind of a mixed bag, which is still pretty decent. The bars are a little bit narrower. Sometimes they're stamped actually with size on there. This also has what I call little cheaters. These are actually a carryover from the cyclocross world. You remember back in the day with the Schwinn Varsies, they had those little metal things come around to be a second brake that didn't do for crap, and you're just like, oh crap handle as you're running into the car or the ditch ahead of you. These actually do work. They splice the cable and they actually give it an extra pivot. And sometimes the lever here is a little more, I would say, touchy versus the lever here. So you have less throw here for stopping. So it's great. I have a pair of them. I love them. I've had them on my cyclocross bikes, gravel bikes, for the last, what, 20, 30 years now. And they're nice to have when you're on bike paths, light riding, and so forth. The reason being for cyclocross is your hands are up here, you're going through mud or whatever obstacles. A lot of times you're not shifting a lot. It's kind of just a course race. That's where they're becoming very benefit, which is great because from that racing or those races provides a great little accessory, if you will, or a functional part that you will use, and you can convert everything that's a cable actuated brake. If it's a hydraulic, no bueno. They haven't invented those yet. Huh. Got to think about a way of fixing that for a hydraulic one in the future. Anyway, that's not my job. I work on old bikes. So look at this bike. Yeah, it's what, 15 years old, 14 years old. And since it was born in August, that means the model year was probably 11, because they start making the next model years just like cars mid to late summer. So this is probably a 2011 model if you look at the catalog specs. Usually not too much change between those. But looking at the bike, it's aluminum. They have their coined A1 aluminum. What was it, butted? Yeah, butted. Nice welds with a carbon fork. Decent stem. C-post is probably a Specialized, no name, the women's specific saddle. This particular one was bought used and brought to me to be tuned up from a good customer of mine. And I've done a couple of their other bikes, but at the end of the day, it's an awesome bike. I mean, it's great for recreational riding if you're just getting into road riding, and it is that geometry, well, mainly the saddles and bars to fit a women's specific. Needless to say that within the fit world, this is where Specialized is cut out the women's specific or gender specific and went to neutral specific, because they really are focusing on the fit, trying to upsell you on the fit. Well, this is before COVID, so I don't know, but that was before they went to direct to consumer. So you got to kind of wonder what's their headed thinking space right now. Are we going to bring back women's specific to cater to that market that are, design bars and so forth, or the neutral gender is still going to be just fine through the pipeline? It don't matter. They're overbought. They have too many bikes in hand right now. They can't sell anything for the life of them. So right now it's whatever. With the future of Specialized there, it's they're going to be around. They're a really big company, but at the end of the day, this particular bike here, even though it is 14 years old, this bike will still hold up against those $1,500 bikes to $2,000 bikes, because you got the aluminum frame, Sora, Tagra componentry, and the geometry. It may look a little cooler and sleeker, but really it's just lipstick on a, any case, this scenario here, in the weight, actually you're reducing gears. I don't know. I'm not so huge fan of the next generation and what they're doing with the componentry, getting rid of the front derailleurs. This one has a nice compact double, so you at least have that instead of a one by. And this range of componentry goes up to, it looks like a 25, but you actually can bump these up to a 28 spread. And if you really go crazy, you get a longer cage derailleur, and then you can put more of a 30 or 32 on there. You can kind of finagle it with a mid-range derailleur cage, but that's something you're going to have to play with. Also, to keep in mind, you need to change the chain, because there's going to be a need for a longer length to do something like that. So you can convert this with moderate lift, which most of the time you're going to have to replace the chain, the cassette, sometimes when you buy a used bike. So this gives you a great opportunity to open up that wider range. But keep in mind, depending where you are and where you're riding, the bigger range of components that you have in the back, it's still, I think, a 9-speed. 9 speeds and 9 speed. So when you open up that range from like 11 to a 32, those jumps between each one of those gears is pretty drastic. So if you're in a flat area or more rolling hills, it's going to be harder to find that perfect gear, and you're just going to have to grind it out or just go too easy. I kind of like having a variety. So most of my bikes have a triple, which gives me a good smooth transition in the back. And when I need that steep incline or fast ascents, then I have those big range 3-speed up front. So needless to say, you can do a good conversion on this to get it close to almost exactly what's out today, but without paying that uplift price. Let's talk about price. Something like this in the used market prices have dropped in the last year and a half dramatically. Some people really haven't get it yet because they're overlisting their bike. That's just going to sit there for a long period of time. In any case, you're still finding gyms like this around 100 to 150. Okay, 100, 150. That's not a big lift. And when you think about having a tune-up done to it and some componentry switched out and maybe a fitting, depending on the fitting services that are available to you. With my tune-ups, it includes a static fitting, so to help customers like this get into and take the scary out of used. Also, I do that anyway because fitting has not been a normal practice like we used to do in the 90s on every bike we sold. That was included. So for the last 24 years, people have not been fitted to their bikes. They've been kind of rolled out like, oh, that looks good. As a salesperson that just wants to make that commission. Horrible. Or they're trying to upsell you to that $300 package on a bike that you just purchased. So I don't know. That's a little bit of a sting for me. There's a place for that, but it's if you don't provide that included fit on a stationary, seeing the angles and so forth, give them the warm fuzzy. Honestly, the bike shop are really hurting themselves when they're not doing that. In any case, I provide a free included fit with all the bikes I tuned up and also sell to make sure it's the best. It's first the right size and it's also adjusted for them to get the best experience possible in riding. Right? Being an advocate for cycling, you should probably be looking into that. In any case, if you haven't gotten a fit, think about it. A fit is huge because that can adjust the stem and the bars just a little bit, and micro adjustments can make a world of difference. And you can research this on YouTube of all the different fittings out there and kind of doing adjustments. You can play it around on your own bike. It's kind of hard to do when your body's yourself. That's the sting of it because you're up against the wall and you got a camera and you're trying to do. But there is actually a camera based software. I wouldn't say software, it's an app. If I find it, I'll put in the link below where you can actually set your bike up on a trainer, get yourself a $20 trainer in your neighborhood and throw your bike on it and get that camera on you and just kind of do the motion. I think it's not too very expensive for a one-person usage, and that way you can adjust that bike and angles by the actual camera, which is probably about 90% of getting you there, and 90% of the people that are getting and riding, that pretty much covers what you'll need. The other 10% are those who are like training, super athletes, doing like triathlons, adventure ride, things that really, they're on their bikes for a lot of hours. That's where that fit for the $300 becomes a valuable piece. But you want to make sure you vet those. Just don't go to each and one. You want to see what kind of system they're using, like a retool or the Trek version, precision fit or something like that. And kind of school them on it. If you can find one that's an independent like me in the garage kind of deal, where they're actually affiliated with rehab centers, that's the better way to go because they're not going to try to upsell you on every little bit and piece. And I know bike shop people out there that do fitting or watching this are going to be a little miffed, but you know what you're doing. It's a sales portal. But if it's from somebody that just does it for the rehab, they're going to tell you what particular stem size and we can vet you or something like that. All depends on the shop, but that was initial intent is, we're going to spend 2 hours with you, 2 to 3 hours with you and have you upsell your bars, your saddles, and you don't need this saddle, you need like the $300 saddle. How that goes, just being true. Sorry, that's the ugly truth of it. So if you can find somebody that just does the fittings that are not affiliated with the bike shop, with those upsells, leveraging, then you can find yourself a fitter that actually will fit you to the bike and not worry about trying to upsell you on the parts. Whew, that's a soapbox in itself. Sorry. Anyway, back to this bike. So the tires are different, but they just got a new tire. So the front tire seems to be doing okay. So we're not going to mess with that. And they're holding air. Air those up when they were dropped off. The chain is stretched. They upped the chain to the wax chain. So I'm putting on a pre-wax chain. 9-speed. Also, I'm doing that conversion too. I just have the parts on order. That's right. I'm going to put this up to a 28 in the cassette. We'll review that when I get the parts. And once I'm doing the chain and cassette, that actually will kind of make this have a wider range of shifting and so forth. If you're into riding and your significant other is not so much, they should always have the better bike or least smooth. because if they have the better experience riding, they're going to ride with you a little bit more. They might not ride with you all the time or not really get into it like you do, but at least they'll be out there and have a good time. Guess what? My wife has a Klein. Oh, beautiful, sharp, slick, fast bike. And also we have a matching roll. And of course, color was very important to her, so we got a nice purple one. It's just like mine. Well, it just did the same thing with the Klein. Anyway, so back to getting a bike. Look for something that they're going to enjoy riding. So we're going to get the technical part of this drivetrain to be a little more range friendly for the rolling hills we have here. Then I'm going to proceed and do the standard tune-up. The people that had it originally put new bar tape on there. I'm going to kind of rewrap these to make it a little more clean and slick. They did a pretty good job. There's just a little more professional touches that we do when we wrap bars. Then I'm going to clean the frame, inspect, of course, and also the wheels, making sure. I'm going to throw a little extra something, ceramic coating on the frame and the wheels for those customer biz. Repeat customers, got to love them. It just, I put a little extra something for those. I see quite a few often. Other than that, it seems like a good solid bike. Let's say 150 bucks. 150 bucks. That's not bad. And you take a tune-up that's like mine with some parts on it, you're looking at maybe 200. Yeah, so you're putting more money into it and the labor and the parts, but you got the bike so down low. You're going to be around 300 to 350, under 500. Let's just put it that way. Under 500, a good solid road bike, an opportunity to get into road riding. 500 bucks. And quite honestly, if it's all tuned up and ready to go and clean and they ride it, you can probably get most of that money back. It's like, oh, it's, not, I mean, it was so low, you can, depending on how the market changes, after a couple of years, it might go up. You never hear that with cars, right? I don't think you'll make more money on this one if we did that. But for me, if I had a bike like this is within my wheelhouse of $400 price range when after I do my refurbishing and so forth. So it is possible to easily get their money out of it. And without further ado, let's crack into this bad boy and start stripping parts and get see if there's any other extra scaries. I gotta wait some more parts to come in, but I can at least get this bike ready to that point. And let's just this white. I'm gonna be able to clean this up, make it look like new. I love when I'm able to have the opportunities to make it really pop. And also these decaling, the purple has a glitter to it in the sun, quite pretty. In any case, let's just dive into this. So first, we want to open up the brakes so we can drop the wheels out. This does have a quick release up front, so it has quick releases both front and rear, but it has safety catches, so you have to unscrew the quick release out for that wheel to drop out. Sometimes these wider tires have a little bit harder time to slide through those brake pads. Be careful not to jar and need too much. This gives me an opportunity to check the hub. And while I'm here, I'm going to be taking the skewers off, as well as this cassette I'm not going to clean over the chain because I have new coming in. So I'll be doing a waxing on the chain that I have and go from there. So yeah, I went through the shifting and so forth and it seems to be shifting just fine. Not sure if this one has a power wheel link, quick link. Oh, it does. And take that off over here. So it's one of those things where a bike shop with pricing, labor pricing, it's like you're not going to, even though it's new going on to the bike, even though it's a drivetrain clean, they're still not going to discount it or anything like that. So that's all just part of the package, if you will. But in any case, what I do is I take that time and put it into other parts of the bike, maybe spend a little more time truing the wheels. If there's something that needs to be more addressed, like in this case, rewrap the bar tape, which, no mechanic will, for the most part, rewrap unless there's cables and housing that need to be done, or they're putting on new bar tape. And then I've had bike shops I've worked at before where, like, oh, you want your bar tape to be new bar tape? Oh, that's additional upcharge not included with the actual tune-up. So I don't know. Be careful of those tune-up prices out there and exactly where you're getting. If you're vetting somebody like me that takes a little extra time and has the ability of taking more time working on bikes and is really passionate about it. Not saying they're not passionate about it, but depending on the business, right? Some businesses are a little more aggressive about, upsell and time and all that. I've been there. I was a production mechanic. I was a service manager. Had to keep track of time, efficiencies, and all that when you're looking at high volume. But if you can vet somebody that's like me, that's going to take extra time and make sure everything's done right. Not saying they don't do it right. They just skip a lot of little pieces like, oh, that needs to be adjusted, so we're going to go on to something else. Because they're trying to cut it. Sometimes they get cut by commission. So, but for me, I do one bike a day. I used to do like 4 or 5. So, age slower, plus the business dynamic, what I do is one of those situations where I do everything from the website to listing parts to everything else in between. There's my pinch. Therefore, I have to balance that throughout the day. So therefore, I only do like 1 or so repairs, and then providing information like this for you guys on YouTube does cut in a little bit of time. I mean, hey, I just spent like 45 minutes setting everything up and all that just to shoot the video, where in a normal just non-YouTube world circumstance, I would just dive right into the repair. In any case, I love bringing this content to you guys. So the rear derailleur, we're going to take a look at this. When you look at rear derailleurs, you want to look at the jockey pulleys. That's the little black pulleys on the bottom, on the ends, or that's where the chain rolls on. Making sure they're clear and no major debris. Also, there's not cracked. Some of the older ones dried out and they do a little bit of cracking. Maybe sometimes not so old, but in any case. And also, you want to de-gunk the old Teflon, whatever wax or not wax, but whatever's been built up on the jockey pulleys. You want to scrape that off before you put an ultrasonic cleaner. You can also take the jockey pulleys completely apart. Just be mindful of how they were taken apart and put back together, so you don't swap out pieces in here, which will jar up your performance. But in any case, because the pulleys are a little bit designed from the upper and the lower. So, or if you don't worry, you take one off, clean the parts in like a little jar and some degreaser. And if you have ultrasonic cleaner, you can put it in there. And then once that's done, you put it back on there and you switch out to the other one and do the other one. Because this one has like a little bit of float back and forth. And that helps the chain kind of guide. And the bottom one has a little less. It's a little more stern. These sometimes don't. They're like contact bushing bearing. They don't have ball bearings. The upper end ones do. And then also you want to look inside and make sure you get all that gunk cleaned off. And I pre-spray mine with a carb cleaner or brake cleaner, but be careful. That might take off some of the decaling too. So keep that in mind. On this one, I don't think I need to replace the cables in the housing. And if I did, it'd be black, which, there's all different colors out there of cable housing. So if you want to change your game or upgrade, there's different cable housing that actually is compressionless for brakes. That helps the performance of the braking. The shifting cables have always been that way. Reason being is the segmented shifting pieces need to be very precise. So on the front derailleur, just basically kind of make sure, you can take a little brush and wipe off any excess dirt. I think the ultrasonic cleaner is going to get most of that. Or once you pre-treat it, like a pre-treat spray, like I said with the carb cleaner, then I can give a little brush scrub and kind of clean that stuff up. The helped ultrasonic cleaner get into all those little bits on there. Take the cranks off in a second. Whew, these brakes are kind of dirty. I like ultrasonic cleaning the brakes because it gets all that dirt out of the little nitty-gritty pieces. So that being said, if the cable housing is long enough, you can redo the cable ends and they slide through. If they get frayed on the end, then you have to do a little extra to clean them and cut them, and then it gets really short. When I replace cables in the housing, I like to put a little extra cable on all the bits when I install them. Reason being is that way when you do a swap out like this or cleaning it, you don't have to always replace all the cables in the housing. It kind of saves that cable for a little bit longer. And keep in mind, cables technically don't wear out. The housing wears out from either getting cracked in the sun or what have you, in that perspective of it, or they get dirt contaminants inside. So you got inside here, you can get water that draws up in here. But if you take a little bit of steel wool, this will clean that cable back up. And a lot of the cables are stainless. So the cable itself doesn't stretch or wear out per se. It's usually the housing that will go first. Not to say they don't wear out. On the shifting, the wear out point is actually in the shifter. Is that end is at a little roll piece at a bend. And each time you shift is moving it back and forth. Like taking a piece of wire, going back and forth. That's what happens inside there. That's a lot of shifting though, let me tell you. That is a ton. So for brakes, you can probably resave the cables. In a lot of cases, when I do refurbishing bikes myself, I'll take the longer cables from the brake and the derailleur, use it on a shorter and swap out for new ones. Like, why waste that cable if it's still in pretty good condition, but the housing needs to be replaced. But the housing for shifting does wear out. So if it has a lot of bends in it for the particular design, especially in the rear, it'll start cutting into that nylon sleeve inside. And when it starts cutting into that nylon sleeve, then it starts binding up. And once it binds up, therefore you got a situation where that shifting is not that great. And come on. Okay, got to do the, apparently it's burred up in there, and that either paint, you know, they throw these together when they're still a little soft as the paint goes. And if this has never been taken out before, sometimes you have to basically thread through the paint to get the part off. In any case, with the, you know, if you're going to be replacing housing and cables, the shifting is going to be the most important part to switch out if need be. This bike looks like it's hardly ever been used, so the cables and the housing are probably in still real good shape. So in the front and rear, you don't have to worry about them too much getting confused, because simply the rod that's on the back part of these, the different lengths. The longer one usually goes to the front. The short one here goes to the back. And I just unthread this guy out. And so this gives me the opportunity to get into all those little nicks and crannies to clean, also inspect, to make sure the frame's in good standing order. And then just need to pop the cranks. These I don't, the shifter's not going to need to be clean. But yeah, other than that, this really opens this area up for me to get into those areas. This particular one, a bottom bracket, is pretty sure it's a square taper, or it's like OctuLink. Anyway, that's good. You want to make sure your Allen fits in really flush, because you can definitely kind of roll these contact points out. And you always want to use good Allens for stuff like this, because these Allens wear out over time. Therefore, you don't want to strip that out. Then if you just strip that bolt out on the contact, you're going to be in a world of hurt trying to remove those. So there we go. Got the bolts, put that in my little basket, clean those up. All right, we got a square taper bottom bracket. That means there's 4 sides on these guys. This tool threads into the crank arm. You want to make sure that's flush all the way in, because the crank arm itself is aluminum, and aluminum will, you can strip these threads out as you're tightening it. So you want to get it in there, and good for good measure, not tight, but just, you know, make sure you're at the base portion of that contact, and that pin will push through against the crank arm spindle, or the bottom bracket spindle. Now you can get that crank arm to come loose. Here's the trick. Don't take it off all the way. You can use this as leverage. Watch your toes. If this thing falls off, it's going to slice and dice. The worst story of one I had was, I'm doing a crank cleaning, right? And this is in the 90s, so I'm flossing it after the solvent tank, which is, you know, disgustingly chemically. I'm flossing it, trying to get all the gunk out of it. It slips, slides down, hits the set of tires on the mountain bike I was supposed to install. that the customer brought in, sliced it, a pair of nice Continentals, and we didn't carry Continentals at the time. So my boo-boo made us have to go to the competition down the street and ask for, see if we could buy a set of tires or one tire. And our competition guy was kind of an arrogant. Yeah. And he, of course, it's like, oh, your mechanics are inferior than mine, and da 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 da. So I was like, horrible. Nothing like screwing up and having an accident and be, your wanker of a competitor down the street that wants to put you out of business. Very competitive in the 90s. Well, maybe he was. I don't know. Any case, it was kind of like, oh, you gotta be kidding me. So yeah, stuck with me today. It's like, what, 25 years later, 30 years later, I'm still scarred by that. So yeah, watch your drop points of any sharp objects, especially your toes, because you don't want to chop or slice up any bits and so forth. So from here, you can clean up all the bottom portion of the frame. That's where that born on sticker is on this one. Sometimes it's down here. The serial number is usually stamped also in the actual metal frame. And this is where you want to clean and inspect and make sure there's, this is where the dirty parts are. Because people don't usually get in this area to clean or don't think about it, because underneath the bike you're not really seeing it. This is where you can see scarring from bike racks. You can see scarring from road chip ups. I've had frames crack in this area here, but just, they just really thin those out. So that's works was one of them. And then down here, getting kicked up and so forth. On the carbon frame, I found a big old nice hole. The rest of the bike was immaculate. Hole was found underneath, like right underneath the Brazon mount. And of course, customer claimed, I didn't know anything about that. Yeah, sure. Any case, ultrasonic parts. I have videos, so I'm not going to show that in this lengthy one. But you can check out those videos, Ultrasonic Magic, cleaning those parts. And once it's clean, we'll do a review of what I found, what needs to be done and redone, and have some wax. I'm also going to true the wheels, wash those up. Also have videos on detailing wheels and cleaning and truing. So there's other videos there. They'll be in the description as well. But for right now, I'm going to basically turn off the camera, crank up the tunes, and start cleaning. And we'll review the wheels, the frame, and the parts after this. Here we have the parts all cleaned up. Skewers again. Brakes still have a lot of meat to them. Put a little ceramic coating on that. And I'll leave those pivots here momentarily. But ooh, look at that crank set. Super clean. Yeah, that's going to be great with a wax chain. Front derailleur. All that little dirty spots, definitely cleaned up. Jockey pulleys are clean, just need to be freshly lubed, ready to go. Using ceramic slam. Ooh, look at that. Polished, trued wheels. Still waiting for the cassette. That's still on order. It should show up sometime today. We'll throw that on. So I'm going to do everything I can to get this bike ready. And bam, there we got the frame. White is always hard to clean, and it won't stay clean. I have a white cyclocross myself, and actually those two white bikes over there. Yeah, I didn't choose the color. It's just one of those situations where that was what was available for me to get used. But yeah, we'll got a little bit of haze on this because I haven't knocked it down. It's 2 layers of ceramic coating. Did some good little cleaning, a little bit of detailing, polish work. But yeah, this bike is pretty close to being almost new. Only major dinger, well, not major, but a little dinger that I found was on this fork blade. Other than that, everything else was kind of like car rack scuffage. That means this bike pretty much hasn't been used. So we'll get in tip-top shape. And yep, there is the chain currently waxing. There we go. Got the secret Silka secret sauce going on. Give that another 5 minutes or so, and then we'll hang dry that, and we'll install that when the cassette comes in. That's usually a pretty low lift. So let's review. There we have it. I'm on the downside on doing this tune-up for this customer. Turns out this bike is in excellent condition. It's one of those diamond and not so rough, but you can find these. I mean, if you're looking for a used bike or a backup bike or whatever, you can find these out there. You got to do a little elbow grease looking at Facebook Marketplace, Craigslist, eBay, a bike list, that kind of thing. But they are popping up. In other words, I'm finding, oh, let's put this in perspective. During COVID, the height of it, I was buying carbon frames between $700 to $900. Now you can get that same bike is dropping down between $300 to $400, sometimes below that. I think I picked up one currently around $250. Pretty good deal. Full carbon, Ultegra componentry, 105 on that one. But in any case, I've seen some titanium bikes. Titanium bikes on the used markets drop down. If you don't mind the cantilever brake, you don't, not into a disc yet, just want to try a titanium bike. They're below $1,000 now. Seen a couple around the $500-600 range. You get yourself in a fun titanium road bike. And recreational bikes like this, just to start off, 100, 150. I even picked up an old classic that I'll be doing a video on, a 1420, one of the first triples that Trek made, and that was a 92. I picked it up at a yard sale for 50 bucks. So that is happening in the current market. Finding bikes like this, just making sure that you want to make sure it's safe to to ride. ABCs, air, brake, chain. Test ride it when you actually go look at it. Do your sizing, schooling on it. So this is a small, I believe. Knowing what a small or women's small or whatever the geometry is that fits you before you even go and look at it, because you'll be wasting time. Fit is the number one key. You want to have the right bike that fits you. Then you can do adjustments to fit it to customize. Let's put it that way, to your kind of style riding, aggressive, recreational, and so forth. Then you need your comfort features, either width with bars, saddle, contact points with pedals. Those are a later date. But getting to a bike like this, say you pay 150 bucks for something like this, which I've seen a lot of them go for this range, put 100, 200 bucks into it for a tune-up and some parts, you got one heck of a bike for under 400, maybe under 300. And that's amazing, because this particular bike blows the doors off of any $1,500 bike or $2,000 bike. Reason being, well, it has a little more gears. It has the same kind of componentry, but if it's one of those situations where you're paying $300 instead of $2,000, and granted, those used bikes are not the new bikes that are currently dropping in price too. I've seen one from GT. It's a gravel bike from $1,200 to $840. Or Poseidon is another brand, direct to mail order, direct to consumer. Mail order is not a thing anymore. Those I've been seeing between like $600 or $700 for full bike coming in, including shipping. It's a great time to buy. And as mechanics out there, it's a great time to work on some of these gyms and get them up to speed for people to get into them. So you're providing a great bike at a very entry level, and it's basically giving the big corporations a big slap in the face, like, wake up, because majority of us don't need that high-end race stuff. It's nice, it's fun, but that should not be all your weighted gold, because guess what? All those customers that bought those are going to buy or in that market already bought them because they're on sale. So the next 5 to 10 years, you're going to be looking at lower mid-range bikes to sell, because the high-end stuff is not going to be as much of a market demand, right? Take note. In any case, let's knock this down. Whoa, you feel a tack at first when you knock down a ceramic coating, and then all of a sudden you get the paint to, ooh, that purple just pops. And then you have, this is a double stack, so I did it twice. So it's really, going to be protected. What's really nice about ceramic coatings, it adds a water bead element, so it's easier to keep clean by just rinsing it with light water. In addition to, it's a little aerodynamic, and go faster. But really, that's not necessarily the reason why I put them on a lot of these bikes. Is that ceramic coating also UV protection, save those colors, save the paint. On a steel bike, that gives you a little added protection against rust, water getting on the frame to rust it. Also, corrosion points on a aluminum bike as well. You want to protect those too. So you got the UV protection, has a little bit of shell to it, so it might protect the paint for some kind of a light scuffage and so forth. But mainly, it just makes it super slick, smooth, easier to wash. So when this goes in for its next tune-up in a year or two, it's going to be easier to get all that gunk off of it. And think about ceramic coatings on cars. It's the same stuff from lithium that I use, the lithium ceramic slam. This particular stuff usually, I mean, they say about 7-8 cars worth in one bottle. So you can only imagine how many bikes it's going to do. I do pretty liberal, I mean, usage on it. So it pretty much goes, I had to go through it a lot faster than you would probably yourself. But a bottle of this will last you, well, I've gone through several bikes with this one and still have about a third left of it. So I can probably get another 4 or 5 bikes out of this as well. You can also use it in your car if you wanted to. That protection for cars typically lasts like a year, and they have like the super ceramics, which are like 5 years, a little bit harder to apply and that kind of thing. Well, think about this. The bike is not sitting outside most of the time. Most recreational bikes don't. They get thrown back in the garage or a shed or what have you. Then they just sit. Well, that protection still stays there. It doesn't like fall apart after a year. It's after being exposed to those elements. So a car sitting outside, gets rained on, whatever, that and sun beating on it, all those kinds of things will break down that ceramic over time. Well, if you're only doing it on rides, let's say, you know, even if you ride 5 days a week, an hour to 2, that's still going to be a lot less time. So a ceramic coating on a bike probably will last you, well, way more than a year, probably a couple of years. So every couple of years when you have that big deep tune-up done on it, if you have that bike for that long, it's going to have that coating. Also, there's stuff called Color Crush from lithium. This actually regenerates the ceramic coating itself and brings the color back and adds more protection. So this is kind of like a refresher step. So if you do ceramic coating originally and you do this periodically after rinsing it and cleaning it from those rides, especially on mountain bikes, that ceramic coating will last even a lot longer and keeping that color even better and better protection and all that kinds of stuff. Can't say any more about it. It's awesome. I love the detailing of it. Been doing this for 30 years and now finding this kind of detailing to it as well is great. And now we're waxing chains, so even adds even more performance factor on that. Well, in any case, thanks for hanging out with me. Going to take for this little spin. Hopefully I get time to put that on there. If not, you're going to have some beautiful pictures to check out after this. If not, thanks for hanging out with me in the garage. Until next time, have a wonderful day. Oh, there's information below and so forth underneath in the description about details of the stuff I use, as well as, you know, tune-up best practices and so forth. If you have a bike like this or similar and you've either worked on, have, or what have you, please throw some comments below. It's a community. It's you that makes this channel. Thank you for hanging out with me in the garage. Until next time, have a wonderful day. But there's pictures. Check it out in the sun. Maybe it test right. We'll see. Well, here we have the Dolce Sport from Specialized, all tuned up and ready to go. Got a new cassette, wax chain, all the cables are good, even got the accent purple cable end caps, all shiny with the ceramic coating. Well, last thing to do is take for a test ride. Yeah, let's check out this Specialized Dolce. So what we have here is your aluminum frame carbon fork with caliper brakes, which is really decent. Got 9 speeds in the back, going up in the gears. Actually feels really smooth, especially with that wax chain. Wax chains do take about 5 miles, 10 miles to completely break in when they're freshly waxed, but needless to say, that will definitely improve your riding experience. And since I put a wider range of gears on this will help that immensely for doing those climbs and longer rides. Here we go, going around, hitting all the gears, checking the front. As the Sora shifters, they have the thumb indicators, they have the shifter indicators, also the thumb buttons to release it. So you got a little bit different than your typical STI shifting. Plus, these are the cheater brakes I talked about. Add a little extra braking here when you're on the bike paths and so forth, or you can typically brake here as well. Very comfortable, very smooth. Feels very solid underneath me. I mean, it's a good solid bike. Plus, this has a gel padding underneath the grips here, which added comfort. Narrower bars for women specific. And I believe these you can adjust to show shorter reach as well. Man, this thing turned out beautiful. Clean frame, ceramic coating. Check out that purple in the sun. Yeah, boy. Does everything it's supposed to do, right? Shift, stop, and is safe. Now I just need to let the customer know that it's ready to go. Have them come in to be fitted. Now the fitting I include with my tune-ups because most people never had their bike tuned or fitted. So that really helps that experience out of the gate. Oh yeah, there to go. The Dolce Sport, ready to hit the road with its new owner. Well, thanks for hanging out with the garage with me. If you have a bike like this or something similar, please put it in the comments below. I'll have information in the description and details of the tune-up and so forth and parts that I used and tools. If it's nice in your neck of woods, please go for a ride. Until next time, enjoy the ride. This is an awesome bike. They'll be super happy. Well, thanks for hanging out with me and have a great day. Birds chirping. It's summertime. Definitely super early. Garage door open to cool it down for the summer heat. The sprinklers go off and you have that sound, and I always kind of get a little panic about, is that a tire? It's just lost air in my garage. Oh, nah, just the sprinklers. So no extra work for me. Well, until later, I'm sure. Anyway. It's gonna be 7:30. That's an hour from now. All right. Free Scholastic summer camp.